Hi, my name is Abby Hunter, and I am a part of a project to bring light to the creative community that we have here in Lancaster. And today with me, I have Steve Wallerstein. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Steve, and how you became an artist.
How I became an artist? Well, that's pretty easy, actually. My father was an artist. He's passed, unfortunately. He's probably one of the most brilliant artists I've ever known, actually. He could paint, he could draw, he could do caricatures, portraits, murals, pottery, jewelry, you name it, he could do it. Both he and my mother graduated from Pratt in New York City, which is a very well-known art school. And we just grew up with art around us. My mother was a fine painter as well. And it just came naturally. It was like living in a house where your parents were gardeners. We never gave it a lot of thought. It just sort of happened. It was around us every hour of the day. And our toys, instead of playing with blocks and stuff like that, was paint and clay and things like that. So it all became very natural.
And how would you say you landed on metalwork throughout the years?
Metalwork specifically. I've always loved metal. I don't remember exactly how it got started, to be honest with you. I've always seemed to have worked with metal in one form or another. To me, metal is very earthy. Even my work maintains a very earthy quality. Even my jewelry maintains an earthy quality. I want it to look like somebody that discovered it when they were digging in their garden, like an artifact or something like that. So I very rarely like high polish things. But metal is very malleable. You can turn it into almost anything you want. And there's so many different kinds of metals: brass, copper, steel, Corten steel, sterling silver. It's just the possibilities are endless. I just love it.
And where would you say you find inspiration in your pieces?
Everywhere. I really do everywhere. My wife and I like to walk. We'll be walking down by the Catawba River, and I'll see a root or a vine growing around a tree, or a leaf that's fallen and started to rot. I'll see a building and a piece of architecture that I find fascinating. A lot of times it's in things that are decaying that most people don't look at or pay a lot of attention to in terms of texture and color and contrast. So inspiration is never far away. There's always something going on.
And you said that you had taught for many years. What would you say that teaching taught you?
Wow. Teaching was the happiest place in the world for me. I was one of the really, really lucky ones. I had 35 years of teaching where I loved every minute of it. I taught middle school. I chose to stay in middle school. I had offers to go to the high school. I had done my student teaching in elementary school and middle school. And middle school to me was the most fun because the kids were still incredibly receptive. They couldn't wait to get into class. There wasn't anything you couldn't do with the kids where they weren't excited about the process. And getting kids excited, particularly in middle school, to me was the most important thing that you could do, because in many cases by the time they got to high school, they've already decided what they're going to do. They've decided that they're going to follow a career in art or music or English or sports or whatever it happened to be. If you got them excited about art in middle school and they could continue with that, it was a lifelong process for the kids. It was a life skill.
Yeah. And steering a little bit away from that, what would you say living in Lancaster recently has affected you as an artist? So your work, where you go, who you're around?
It's interesting. Making the move from Connecticut to South Carolina was a really tough choice. It was very emotional for me. I grew up pretty much in Norwalk, Connecticut. I was surrounded by artists and art and a culture that I was very familiar with from the time I was very young. I was and still am a life member at the Silver Mine Guild of Art, which is in New Canaan, Connecticut, the oldest guild of the United States, as a matter of fact. And when we moved, I thought I was going to lose all of that. And moving into a new community, you're getting your feet wet, and first you're trying to get settled
Yeah.
and comfortable in your home, and then you start to become more and more familiar with the community. And I started to discover that this entire area, Lancaster County in particular, is an incredibly art conscious community. It's living arts. It's wherever you go.
Yeah.
It's in courtyards. It's in murals on walls. It's in galleries. It's in activities at the Lancaster Art Center. It's in ag and art, which I'm a participant in. I've been at Ivy Place for the last 5 years. That's where I really felt, that was the first time I really felt like I was part of the community, that I belonged.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love it here. There's always something going on.
I agree with you. But last question. What would you say being creative means to you?
Being creative means to me, not being a couch potato. You can be creative in so many different ways. You don't have to be an artist to be creative. My wife is a very, very fine cook. She's always reading about recipes and trying new things, and she can cook in any style, that you can think of. Creative to me is learning to see your world, not just looking. It's one of the things I used to teach my students.
Yeah.
Not just looking at something, but actually seeing it, comparing and contrasting, learning to draw, learning to see the things around you and how they impact you and other things in your environment, how art impacts your environment. Creatively looking at a piece of metal, for instance, and thinking how to manipulate it into something new that never existed before.
Well, that's a pretty good answer. But thank you for your time.
That was very easy, thank you.